Fred, I think this is one of the darkest days in the American Republic. When James Madison wrote in the Federalist Papers about the use by political faction of newfangled and artificial treasons to oppress their opponents, I think he had a case like this in mind. This is a made-up case. This was a sham trial in front of a deeply, deeply, irretrievably biased judge. It's absolutely shameful. The only thing that today's verdict proves is that Joe Biden and his political allies have successfully weaponized our legal system and weaponized the courts in a way that is unprecedented in American history and in a way that should, frankly, alarm all Americans who are concerned about the future of our constitutional republic.
All right, that was Will Scharf, who's running for Attorney General of Missouri, but also is, of course, on Trump's legal team. You're watching Inside the Numbers with the People's Pundit. I am your host, Rich Barris, the People's Pundit. You'll notice there's no Q&A today. There was something at 1:30 that is very, very important that I need to do. All right, and you will probably figure it out sooner or later, but it is very important. I'm going to open with saying this before we get into anything else. Pollsters have their own views and they have their own opinions as well. Election forecasters have their own views and they have their own opinions as well. I'm not going to insult your intelligence by pretending that I don't, like I'm some kind of a robot who's programmed to take in and input data into my brain and spit it out in a way that is not human in any fashion whatsoever. I have safeguards that I have in place for years to help me, prevent myself from being duped like other pollsters have been duped by my own confirmation biases, my own cognitive biases, my own social biases. And with all of that being said, I will tell you this. I 100% agree with Will Scharf. I 100% agree with Megyn Kelly. I wish I could deliver something better to you this afternoon, but I cannot. The fact of the matter is, after yesterday, today, America is disgraced. Stop pretending that you live in an exceptional country, because at the moment you do not. We're no different than the Soviets. We're no different than the Chinese. We're no different than the Russians. We're no different than the Ukrainians. We're no different than any other third world shithole that imprisons their political opposition because they're a failed political class who can't govern correctly. They can't govern with legitimacy. So instead they try to put their political opponents in jail. This is textbook. This is textbook failed political class attempting to grasp on to the power that they are losing because they aren't good at doing their job for the whole of the body politique. Instead, they have come to serve only themselves. They have angered too many people, and they know they cannot win. The day this verdict was put out, Emerson College released a poll in New York State that shows that Donald Trump is only down by 7 points in New York State. With the current president who won the state, it's a D plus 30 state, folks. With the current president below 50, well below 50. So this is what they're seeing. They know it. They could not beat him any other way. And this is what made America exceptional in the first place. Is that win or lose, we deal with our political differences at the ballot box. We solve our political differences at the ballot box, and the loser must accept that they lost and move on. This is something Democrats have refused to do for decades. They are the original election denialists and deniers. And anyone who argues to the contrary is either a shill, a liar, or ignorant, or all three. It doesn't, there is no alternative reality here. They've been doing this since Nixon. They've been doing it actually even before that. They tried to keep Abraham Lincoln off the damn ballot, folks. All right, that's the last time that somebody made an attempt like what we have been seeing in this election cycle. All right, so I have a ton of clips. Everybody who are normies, because from a pollster's point of view, I got to tell you, and then we're going to get a legal point of view in a second, but from a pollster's point of view, I got to tell you, I had 1 million people calling me yesterday, and they sound like so many voters that we have interviewed over the last 6 months, a year. Basically, they never thought it would come to this. They really did not think it would come to this. And I had to explain to them that if you expected anything different, you really don't know what time it is. But now that you're red pilled, now that you're awake, whatever it may be, you have no time now to play catch up. This is what time it is in this country. All right. I can only equate this event to the day after the state assassinated John F. Kennedy, because they did. The state killed our president. You understand that? And now the state wants to make it so that your right to choose your leadership in the executive branch is just completely annihilated. The ruling class in this country believes in a privilege, a right to rule. They do not believe in voter sovereignty anymore. They will commit heinous acts of treason and sedition. They will fabricate hoaxes like the Russia hoax to try to subvert a duly elected president and his administration. Why the hell not? Let's put him in jail too. This is what time it is in this country. And frankly, the truth of the matter is simple. Reagan, everyone loves on the right. He was not a shaker upper of the status quo. He changed culture and he made conservatism cool for 3 decades, but he did not come in with a sledgehammer, or they didn't fear that he would come in, with a cleaver and start just chopping up whole areas of the federal government. He had a marginal impact on the size and scope of the federal government. He was incredible at advancing the idea that the government is not your friend, because they're not. And that is the magic of Reagan. But they weren't afraid of him the way that they're afraid of Donald Trump. Why? Because Reagan wasn't like Donald Trump. And he's not someone who was in Donald Trump's position. Reagan still needed to ask, can I get a donation? Can I get a big donation to get across the finish line? Trump is not someone you could buy like that, all right? He's just not. He wasn't in 2016. He didn't take money from these huge donors. They came on board after the fact only so they could have a seat at the table. And he took money from them, but didn't mean he would do what they wanted him to do. And time again, he didn't. So I would really just point you, I'm not going to play the clip. I have it. It's on People's Pundit Daily. You should really listen to Don King on this, because I've heard him privately, publicly say the same thing. And few people have articulated it better than Don King. He is a rich white man from liberal blue America. He was not supposed to betray the ruling class and the system for you dirty, unwashed masses. And because he did, they have to make an example out of him. Now, that's what most ruling classes want to do. The real problem here and the difference is, in America, we're not supposed to tolerate that. In America, they're not supposed to have the balls to do that. In America, we're supposed to be better than that. But as of today, we are not. As of today, we are no different. I don't want to ever get a lecture on Vladimir Putin and Russia again. You are no better than any of them. None of them. End of story. And to pretend otherwise is living in an alternate universe. Let's get the president's reaction. Then I'm going to bring on Daniel Street. And then I have a ton of clips I want Daniel to react to. But this was after the verdict. And we'll go from there. And actually, this is a clip reacting on Fox News to what was going on, too. The president, of course, came out and spoke today. And he gave what was, honestly, one of the better reactions to some of these events I've heard him give. And he said, listen, I know what I'm saying is dangerous. That was the biggest line of Trump's reaction. I know what I'm saying is dangerous. I don't give a shit. I'm willing to do whatever it is to save America. That's the tone he's got to take to override the people who aren't going to want to vote for him after this conviction. There will be some measure of them. I got to tell you, folks, the blowback to this was so enormous. It was earth-shattering. Over $30 million raised. His site crashed. There were Silicon lefties, founders of Sequoia Capital, going on Twitter saying, I just gave him, what was it, $300,000. Lee Zeldin has a Rolodex of people he calls to bust chops to get fundraising for that PAC. He was fielding phone calls yesterday unsolicited for huge amounts of money. There were people you would never think would vote for Donald Trump. Michael Rappaport, the actor who hated Donald Trump, is like, this is crazy. Donald Trump, by the way, you just made the next president again. The blowback was tremendous. That's why Biden didn't come out, by the way. But let's listen to this Fox clip, then we'll bring on Daniel.
Significant for what it does not say. It does not indicate the underlying crime that the jurors needed to find present in order to bump these charges up from a misdemeanor to a felony to make sure they could survive the statute of limitations. As you well know, the prosecutors presented 3 different theories for the jurors to consider, and Judge Juan Merchan decided that they did not need to be unanimous in which theory they thought was present. That could have been a tax crime, a FICA violation, or other falsified records. So the big question for all of us now is, what was the underlying offense that was present? We don't know right now, and legal scholars say that is one of the many reasons why this case is ripe for appeal.
All right, I'm going to stop it there. Daniel Street, ladies and gentlemen. As always, Daniel, thank you so much for coming on at such short notice. You have written extensively on these persecutions. You said Alvin Bragg. I mean, you're among many, actually. You said Alvin Bragg should be disbarred. Megyn Kelly said he should be disbarred. She said our country is disgraced. I mean, the blowback yesterday was absolutely tremendous because I think, Daniel, and I know this as a pollster, I know this to be true, there was a large group of people who were like, this isn't really going to happen. They're not really going to do this. There's going to be 12 jurors would never look at this case and convict him. They didn't understand what you and I and people like Robert Barnes, Mike Davis, we've been saying forever. There are whole jurisdictions in this country. We call them ideologically possessed. There's no amount of facts or evidence you could give to them. They're crazy. They're fanatics. We have fanatics in this country. And by the way, one holdover or not, there's more than 90% of the holdover cases, they cave. They're bullied. And let me tell people how it works in New York City. They'll catch that son of a bitch on the way home and make sure he delivers a guilty verdict. That's how it goes in this place. Everyone thinks everyone thinks, Daniel, that it's like this is a beautiful courthouse or something, and this is a legitimate process. I know this courthouse. It smells like human piss and body odor. It smells like mildew. It's the dankest rundown shithole you'll ever see in your life. It's perfect for what happened. It's perfect. It's exactly exemplifies where we are in this country. I'm going to shut up, though, and let you react to what you just said, because I got another clip I want you to react to that follows up on this. All these calls I'm getting, I'm like, look, guys, I'm not a lawyer, but I can't tell you the underlying crime because there fucking was none. There wasn't any. But that's not how America works. There was no underlying crime. I'm sorry.
Well, I'll go one further, Rich. I'll say there was no crime at all.
No crime.
No underlying crime, no crime at all. And what's important about this is, look, President Trump's due process rights under both the federal Constitution and the state of New York, the New York Constitution, were violated by this indictment. The indictment didn't disclose what the underlying crime was. And just for your viewers, President Trump was charged with a business records statutory violation in New York. It's called falsifying business records. To be a felony and to get the 5-year statute of limitations, there had to be the falsification of business records had to be done with the intent to commit or conceal another crime. The indictment didn't say what that other crime was. At Alvin Bragg's irresponsible press conference, he refused to disclose what the underlying crime was. And in fact, President Trump's legal team didn't find out what the prosecution's theory was until their opening statement when the trial began. That is unconstitutional. The indictment was defective and should have been dismissed from day one. I covered all that in a Substack post I wrote within just a week or two of the indictment being filed. So this was a setup. It's one of the worst, if not the worst, prosecutions I've ever even observed. It was terrible. Wow. It's a travesty. And it was, look, if it's not reversed, then we don't have a legal system to rely on, frankly. It's and look, but one thing people that we could take a little silver lining out of this cloud is that maybe we can get people to galvanize from all political persuasions to give criminal defendants throughout this country, the right to appeal interlocutory decisions on dispositive motions. So when President Trump's legal team filed motions to dismiss this indictment and the judge ruled against them, and I've read his rulings and they were BS.
Yeah.
the president had very, very limited rights to get the Court of Appeal to look at it. So what they do is they prosecute you, and then you get convicted, and then appeal. And a couple of years later, the Court of Appeal, oh, well, that was wrong. After your life's been ruined. Most people aren't like President Trump, and they don't have billions of dollars.
Right.
Most people get ruined and then get acquitted or get a dismissal from the Court of Appeal.
This is what we're hearing from, because people, when I first said non-whites were going to relate to him over this, I had a bunch of elite white people who don't know a damn thing about the American ghetto in this country mock it and scoff at it. And I'm like, how many black friends do you have? How many Hispanic lower income friends do you have? Apparently none. Where did you grow up? Apparently with a silver spoon in your big fat mouth, and you have no idea what you're talking about. These people have been railroaded for years, for decades, Daniel, decades. They were going to relate to him on this. And here's like you said, if this does turn out the just way, maybe the silver lining will be that there will be better legal remedy for those who aren't in the position that President Trump is in, because your life is over when they do this to you. If you're a normal person, your life is over. They will railroad you. They want testimony from you. They will squeeze you. I know it's happened to people. I know it's happened to me. They don't give a shit. They don't care what the parameters are supposed to be within their, their system. Like I had one person yesterday that called, said, what happened to just a recusal on the appearance of impropriety? Like, right. What happened here? All of this is down the drain. And I want to play a clip. I want you to react, because you brought up the appeal. This is not a bomb thrower, folks. This guy's a former federal prosecutor himself, Brett Tolman. You may know who he is, Daniel. Listen to what he said about, that this is not even, there are no gray areas with this case being garbage and needing to be overturned. He's a black and white. Clear, and this is not a bomb thrower, and he is himself a former federal prosecutor. Let's roll this. Not exactly known for being a Trump MAGA right-wing chest thumper, folks. That's not who Tolman is. Let's listen to him and get your response, Daniel.
There are plenty of grounds for an appeal to reverse this case. I'm not talking about, gray areas. I'm talking about black and white violations by a judge and the evidence that he allowed in and what he didn't allow in, and then the jury instructions themselves.
See, he had to play these little games because, I'm not a lawyer, but I do know enough about election law. They couldn't go the route with the campaign finance violation because of the John Edwards case. They couldn't do that. So they had to play this game where, and I have another clip. Maybe I'll play after I get your reaction to this one. But it's like they had this crazy way of like, well, you can kind of in your own mind make up the underlying crime that you think was committed here. Like, and you all don't have to agree on it. You could just make it up. He didn't even allow an expert witness on election law, the former chairman of the FEC, to come in and, speak about how none of this, even if you believe it happened, which I would argue during the trial, greatly caused as to whether or not this even happened, Daniel, whether or not this even, Stormy Daniels' own testimony, for crying out loud, completely contradicts years of statements that she has made. And if anyone committed a crime, if you believe the prosecution's case, she's the only one, and Michael Cohen are the only ones who committed an actual crime. One committed extortion, being Stormy Daniels, and Michael Cohen is a thief. And he committed fraud, and he committed theft. This is incredible to me. But what do you think about what Brett Tolman said about this is black and white?
Yeah, he's absolutely
this is
right.
Like, there should be no question.
These aren't debatable points. And there's a host of them. There's a host of them, from both the timeliness. This was an untimely indictment in the first place, violating President Trump's due process on the delay. Yet people need to remember that all of this conduct happened in 2016 and 2017, and President Trump didn't get indicted until 2023. We had a prosecutor from the DA's office resign and write a book about it after he resigned and before the indictment was brought. It said, hey, the DA needs to indict this person, which is that's Pomerantz, if you remember him. That's the guy, when he got hauled to Congress to testify to Congress, he took the Fifth Amendment. He asserted his Fifth Amendment right to be against compelling his testimony. his right to be free from self-incrimination when he was asked questions about whether this investigation and his involvement in it was done to violate President Trump's constitutional rights. Now, I'm going to tell you, I've never heard of a prosecutor who refused to answer whether his investigation violated the constitutional rights of the defendant. But that happened in this case. This case should have never seen the light of day, and there's a dozen reasons why. And what Tolman was talking about was more geared toward what happened at the trial and what happened with the jury instructions. And he's absolutely right. I want to say it's impossible that this verdict stands. I think it's impossible, but I don't want to go quite that far because it seems like in the Trump era, the impossible becomes possible.
Yeah. And that's so, I mean, that is so disturbing. I had to point someone to this clip because they did not believe me. My wife's friend called her, and her, I guess soon to be husband, I guess they're engaged now, is like, no, but it had to be that it was this crime. It had to be what they said. I'm like, you're not hearing me. Go read the verdict. There is no underlying crime. There's a panel on Fox right now trying to explain to viewers they don't have an underlying crime identified. Here's Jonathan Turley, who, we say in the South, you know what I'm talking about, bless his heart. This guy really thought that jurors were going to redeem an irredeemable corrupt justice system. I don't know what effing world this guy is living in. I mean, I talk about needing to shed your idealistic tendencies, brother. I mean, it just is time for everybody to wake up. Here's Turley on what, on the verdict.
That's part of what really undermines the legitimacy of this verdict. It fulfills the narrative that the former president has been stating for years, that there is this weaponization of the legal system. I happen to think that that's accurate here. We could talk about the other cases, but this is a manufactured criminal case that zapped a dead misdemeanor into life and converted into 34 felony counts. And I just looked at the jury verdict. There is no indication that I saw of what the second crime was. So I still don't know what the president was convicted of.
He's right. I reviewed the verdict form myself. In fact, I did it this morning because I figured we would want to talk about it. And the jury was not tasked to identify the underlying crime. This is look, to understand what the charges were, the government here claimed that there was a violation of this election interference statute in New York that says any person that attempts to promote or prevent the election of a person using unlawful means, is guilty of whatever. But there had to be an underlying crime. So we had the alleged campaign finance violation, which there wasn't a campaign finance violation, and then other falsified records, and then tax violations. Here's the problem. All of those things, or two of them anyway, happened in 2017. They can't be done to influence the election. They're done in 2017. So what the judge did is said, look, you have to have an unanimous jury, but you don't have to be unanimous on what the underlying offense was. You can mix and match. 4 of you could think it's a campaign finance violation. 4 of you could think it's a 2017 tax violation. All of that's illegitimate. And it's illegitimacy piled on top of illegitimacy from the very beginning. And I tell you what is the most disturbing about it is we expect, and when I say we, I'm talking about lawyers, we expect judges to be better than this.
Yeah.
And they're not sometimes. And this is a good illustration of it.
This tees up my next clip, and you already just did, but I was gonna tee it up by saying that, and I'm not gonna out her, but we have a member of our locals, she's got a lot of information. You pay attention to somebody who's lived it, who knows it, and she was in the federal justice system on the defendant side as well. And that's ultimately what she has said time and time again is the problem. If it doesn't matter what's codified into law, if the judges and prosecutors too, but if the people who are tasked with being like the safeguards, tasked with being the ethical ones, don't have sufficient character, it doesn't matter what the law says. They're just going to abuse it and break it. And ultimately, that's our problem with the justice system. And to pretend, it's unbelievable to me because it's not. I'm going to play this clip. It's from CNN, but just a couple of days ago, when President Trump's lawyer was talking to Shannon Bream on Fox News, she said it was a Biden prosecution, and Shannon Bream had the audacity to act as if this was not connected to the Biden administration. Daniel, we have the logs. That's number one. But number two, we know who left the justice, the main justice, obviously at the behest of Biden, to go push this case in Alvin Bragg's office. We know this. So for her to pretend, like, I think they did America, they did liberty, period. They did justice, the concept of justice, a grave disservice. They are traitors. I'm using that word completely intentionally, not to be hyperbolic, but to lend this process legitimacy when it was anything but, is an act basically of treason in my mind. It really is. Like, this is JD Vance having to tell Caitlin Collins, by the way, who is just so happy. And you could see it in her smug little face. So happy. Her too, pretending as if this wasn't a Biden prosecution, and he has to go over the record here about who this judge was. It's just unbelievable to me that this ever was allowed to go forward. It's so beyond the pale, right? Let me just play it because JD nukes her. He nukes her. And I got two from JD, but one is dealing with one question and then the other's dealing with this. I got a question for you after this clip.
Pretty unusual for the number 3 person in the Department of Justice to then go to the New York prosecutor's office to bring a bogus case against Donald Trump, and then to have the judge presiding over that case to be a donor to Biden-Harris. I think that's pretty unusual, Caitlin, and really is, aside from your views or anyone else's views about Donald Trump, this is a real threat to Americans' trust in the legal system. If you look at polling, even a lot of folks who are going to vote for Joe Biden think that the lawfare against Donald Trump is bogus. We're destroying faith in the American system of law and order to try to bring down Joe Biden's political opponent. That's a threat to democracy.
I mean, just a few things. He didn't even cover the full picture here. Just a few things, of course, bringing up, like I said, you don't leave the number 3 post at Justice to go work for fat ass Alvin Bragg in a city district. I mean, this is insane. You don't do that, right? I mean, first of all, let's address that because you're a lawyer and you know the career path of a lawyer to be a successful lawyer. If you're working for the feds, Daniel, do you work your way up there your entire life just to leave and do something like this? No,
this was an extraordinarily unusual, we'll call it, you can't even call it a lateral move. This guy went from the number three position at the United States Department of Justice to being an assistant to the Manhattan District Attorney. So this is going from Washington, D.C., from number 3 position in the federal government to being an assistant to a local DA in a county. So no, look, this was cooked up. And what happened was the original DA, Cyrus Vance, refused to bring these charges.
Yes.
And then the Soros-backed Alvin Bragg got elected. And in the DOJ, the Biden regime was concerned that Bragg and his team were too incompetent to actually do the job. So they sent the top guy they could get to go to New York to try the case, essentially, and to build the case. And that's what happened.
Let me ask you this as a lawyer, and I'll try to make this analogous to me is in the polling industry. When we had some really bad flops, and I mean, we did, even before Trump, we had the exit poll flop of both 2000 and 2004. Really, there was polling misses in 12, people overstating Romney. And then by the time we got to 14 and 16, it was a total mess. People thought it was completely rigged. There was no faith in it. It was personally upsetting to me that there were people who intentionally, for their own political benefit, had sabotaged public trust in my profession. I mean, that's polling. I want your like personal feelings on how this makes you feel when these people have what JD was saying, that they have totally destroyed trust in the legal system, and I don't know how we're going to get it back. And not to mention, I mean, not just your own personal feelings, but it's dangerous. You know, it's dangerous to civil society. But I mean, how much does this bother you as a lawyer? You know, I mean,
yeah, you know, the irony is I'm accustomed to, you know, cracks and jokes and about lawyers and about the practice of law, and I get that. But lawyers, generally speaking, we have a different view of the practice, and we have a different view of the law and the judiciary. And you know, I can tell you, I came up idolizing the federal judiciary, in particular, in the Supreme Court. And you know, what's happened, what the Biden regime and the far left Democrats have done to the law in this country and to law enforcement, and with the complicity in many cases of the judiciary, is it's really devastating to my confidence in the system. Look, I've dealt with the legal system all of my career, you know, 27 and a half years. So I know, I always tell people, look, if your last chance at justice is federal court, then you're not in good shape. That's been the case for a long time. But all of this has really just killed what little confidence lawyers have in the system. There's still some good people in the judiciary. There's still a lot of good people in the judiciary. But one thing I want your viewers to remember: anytime the Democrats claim that something's a threat to democracy, they're really falsely accusing somebody else of what they're guilty of. Because as we speak, the United States Supreme Court stands in the way of what the Democrats want to do to Donald Trump. So the Democrats just attack the court. Yeah. And we see that. So anytime, everything the Democrats are doing with lawfare is to undermine this country's institutions, whether it's the presidency, which has been undermined by all of this, and even by, you know, Mueller's investigation and the Russia collusion hoax and all of that, to the impeachments. The bogus impeachments of President Trump undermined the presidency. Now they're undermining federal and state law enforcement. They're undermining the judiciary, and they're attacking the Supreme Court. So this is not your grandparents' Democrat Party. This is a totally different animal. And just look at what they've done in New York with the Attorney General attacking Trump, attacking the Trump organization, attacking and trying to revoke the charter of the National Rifle Association, and then the Cuomo administration going in and actively coercing or attempting to coerce insurance companies from not doing business with NRA. The United States Supreme Court ruled just yesterday that those allegations by the NRA set forth unconstitutional conduct by the New York government. Yep. That's what these people are doing. And right now, the Attorney General is suing pregnancy centers because they're not pushing abortion like the government wants them to. You know, so this is not your parents' Democrat Party, and the only thing we can hope is that the rebuke by the electorate is stunning, because that's the only thing that will stop them.
Yeah, I mean, I was just you're doing a great job teeing stuff up here for me, because I mean, there's two ways, there are two ways to punish them for this. And I mean, it's really the only way. I do want to bring up, though, what you just said with intimidating the Supreme Court real quick before we move forward. For those who don't know, congressional Democrats requested a meeting with Justice Roberts where they were intending on bullying him to make Alito and Thomas recuse themselves from the rulings on Trump's immunity case and other stuff that they anticipate coming up. Unbelievable. I mean, like you just said, I mean, anytime they accuse someone of doing something, it's projection. They're doing it themselves. And that's how they know always so much about it and how to phrase it, because they know, because they're the ones doing it. Thankfully, Justice Roberts told them to pound salt. He won't even meet with them. Right. So hopefully that is a good sign. I know a lot of people who told me that this conviction could lead to the court giving a more expanded immunity than they would have, like an expanded definition of immunity. I don't know. We'll see. But they're destroying the office of the president. They are destroying the systematically from every angle, destroying the office of the president. And what that means for you people at home is that there is no elected person in the executive branch except for the president. You only get a say over the executive himself or herself. If they take this away from you, which is what they're doing, make no mistake, you have nothing. Your leaders in Congress are already a bunch of eunuch cowards or crooks. And that leaves, hopefully, some person willing to step forward who is willing to fight for the body, for the average person, the average normie in America. And if they get that, this is over. This whole experiment is over. I'm not being hyperbolic. You might as well just forget it. It's done. They're coming for all of us next. That's number one. And they will do what the history of, unfortunately, human nature and human civilization has showed us time and time again that they will do. And it will lead to horrible outcomes for anyone who opposes it. There's two ways this could go, though, to punish them. One is we talked about before, and that's the other clip with JD I want to play. All of the clips I got are real short. Here's JD's take on Jesse Waters about what needs to be done, because you have like cowards like Larry Hogan who came out, respect the jury, kiss my ass, you fat cow. I don't respect any of this process. I don't respect you, you taco eating fat bastard. I don't respect any of it. Nothing. Zero, zilch. It has no credibility. And by the way, watch Mitch McConnell sink tens of millions of dollars into Larry Hogan in Maryland to get crushed anyway, because that's how dumb and crooked these people are. All of his people from China will come flock to Larry Hogan to stuff his fat face with donations, and he will still lose by double digits. Guaranteed, mark my words. Here's what JD says needs to happen.
Experts, frankly, from across the aisle say that this case won't stand up on appeal. Well, if the case won't stand up on appeal, why was it ever brought in the first place? Why was a judge whose family has gotten rich off of Democratic Party fundraising allowed to preside over this thing in the first place? And Republicans, Jesse, we cannot just sit on our hands. We can't just complain about it, as important as all of that stuff is. We have to be willing to fight back. We need to be subpoenaing Judge Sean and his daughter. We need to understand what are the connections between big Democratic money and this sham prosecution. Did George Soros ever talk to Alvin Bragg about using his power to go after Donald Trump? We need to get to the bottom of it. And when we find wrongdoing, we need to be willing to actually punish it. That is the only language that I think these people are going to understand, is that if they do this, if they turn the American system of justice into banana republic garbage, they're going to suffer consequences for it. And if they don't, Jesse, it's not going to stop with Donald Trump. Banana republics never stop with the guy at the top. Never. It's going to go after a ton of other Republican officials and conservatives unless we fight back.
Never, Daniel, never. Yeah. They never stop.
They're already doing it. There's 18 other Republicans charged in Georgia. There's Republicans charged in Arizona, Republicans charged in Michigan. There are 30 unindicted co-conspirators in Georgia. There's I forget how many in the January 6th federal DC indictment. They're already attacking Republicans, and they're not going to quit. Look, I was quoted. I gave a quote to John Zimmerak with thestream.org for an article he did about this issue, and I said, look, there's 200 or 300 Republican district attorneys around this country, rough estimate, who have the ability to charge all manner of campaign finance violations that what the Democrats are doing with they're bundling all of these campaign contributions and falsely attributing them to people who didn't make any contributions. There's tons of evidence of this. We need one U.S. attorney. Nobody will bring a charge. And the DAs all over the country, state DAs, local DAs, could charge these offenses for campaign finance violations in state elections. And they haven't, none of them have done it to my knowledge. So until Republicans take the gloves off and start actually charging, this is criminal misconduct I'm talking about. I'm not talking about contrived misconduct. We got to charge actual criminal misconduct. And until they do that, and they do it aggressively, the Democrats, particularly this is a far fringe wing of the Democrat Party doing all this, and they're not going to stop until they're made to stop by people with sense.
It's like an open secret that Act Blue is a nationwide money laundering operation.
Yeah.
And I mean, they are operating in every district you just cited. I mean, there is everywhere. And the Republicans have done absolutely nothing about it. Then there's another way to punish them, of course. And you mentioned it before. And I want to just put a couple of reactions up because I'm sure you saw it on Twitter. I mean, man, there were actors, there were Silicon Valley liberals. The backlash was enormous. I mean, I really think a bunch of people didn't think this would happen. I don't really think it. I know it. I mean, they didn't think it would happen. And now that it has, they're terrified. But they, there's walking the normies on the street. You have some of these alternative, certainly right-wing news organizations getting takes from people on the street. And I just want to play one from what looks to be your typical suburban woman, New Yorker, by the way. Again, Biden +7 in New York is an absolute disaster. It can't happen without people like exactly who I'm about to play being outraged over what's going on. So let me go ahead and play it.
I think that he had a fair chance here in New York. I think that it was rigged from the beginning. I think that this was all a setup. They just don't want him running. They're very intimidated by him. And I think at the end, he's still going to win. Because
will this help Donald Trump in the long run?
100%. I wouldn't doubt he's raising millions and millions of dollars right now.
And she was right. Clip 2, one more.
What do for Donald Trump's chances at the presidency now?
He's going to win. He's going to get more voters than ever. He's going to win.
There it is. Listen, this was like, again, Michael Rappaport. This guy used to fume on his TikTok and on his Periscopes he used to do when Periscope was still around during the Trump administration. He used to spend half his day fuming on Twitter about how much he hated Donald Trump with one F-bomb after another. People... this was not, that's why Biden didn't come out. I'm 100% certain Biden did not expect, or at least the people, Biden doesn't expect anything but to crap his pants every day. Let's get real. The people around Biden did not parade him out because they did not get the reaction they were hoping for. And this is like we got to respect the verdict. We got to respect the rule of law. They have the audacity to talk about the rule of law. It's unbelievable. I want to read this by Ellie Honig because this is a perfect example. For those who don't know who she is a CNN commentator, legal commentator. She worked for Alvin Bragg. This is her piece in the Rolling Stone this morning. Okay. Listen to that in the Intelligencer, right? She says, most importantly, the DA's charges against Trump push the outer boundaries of the law and due process. That's not on the jury. That's on the prosecutors who chose to bring the case and the judge who let it play out as it did. And, just to stick over, she goes on to say that these were not really crimes, but when she goes on and says, but when you impose meaningful search parameter, the truth emerges. The charges against Trump are obscure and nearly entirely unprecedented. In fact, no state prosecutor in New York or Wyoming or anywhere has ever charged federal election laws as a direct or predicate state crime against anyone for anything. None ever. So this is not the right wing flipping out here alone. Like this is not, and this is rare, because we're all hearing about these voters who won't vote for a felon. All I saw yesterday were people snapping out of the fog, like, oh my God, this really happened, as if and I guess to me, it's hard for me to I know they were there. I know they held those points of view. I just can't grasp how they could ever hold them. I got, again, I'm seeing it on social media. I'm fielding it in calls. I hear it in polling all the time. They just live in another generation or something. And they just didn't think this would happen. And I think to myself, what makes people think that the rule of law is some self-contained or self-perpetuating entity that doesn't need to be safeguarded, protected, or coddled, really. And I mean, I don't know what makes them think this was just going to continue forever. Like, read your Cicero. I mean, I don't know what to say here. I don't know, Daniel. I mean, what do you make of that? I mean, because even liberals are bugging out over this.
Yeah, I think a lot of people were naive and thought that the system itself was bigger than the manipulation. And then they find that that's not the case. And they thought, well, look, this isn't going to work, and when I say work, it's not going to lead to a conviction. I will tell you, everyone held out hope that we would get some jury nullification on this, even though I thought that was highly unlikely given the fact that this jury was picked in such a rush with the very purpose, in my view, of getting the jury that the prosecutors wanted. Everybody always holds out hope, and that hope was forlorn in this instance, as we now know. And hopefully a lot of those people, or most of those people, if not all of those people, have their eyes open and see what's really at stake here. And because the only option for all of us now is to double down in our support of President Trump.
Yeah.
It's just that simple.
The only way out is through. The only way out of this is through. And honestly, I will tell you this 100%. Daniel, I really believe this to the core of my very being and existence. If they were doing this to Bernie Sanders, I would vote for Bernie Sanders. I'm not kidding. No. I'm not joking. If they were doing this to Barack Obama, as much as it would have pained me because I can't stand Barack Obama, I would have voted for Barack Obama, because you cannot get away with this. The entire system is at stake. There is no way that you can roll back this. Right. I hate to tell everybody, but that is the only way to even attempt to roll it back, because they did it. And for people out there who don't think there's jail, this is a legal question I want you to answer, but there are people still saying, well, then he's not going to get jail time. They wouldn't ever sentence him to jail time. There are very few now, by the way, but there still are some. Of course, everything is pointing to the fact that they want to jail this man. You think they won't impose a jail sentence on him? You're at this point a tiny minority who's living in a dream world still, but most people aren't anymore. They get it. They do get it. What does as I understand it, and tell me if I'm wrong, you're the lawyer. As I understand it, though, sentencing is set, the date is set, but it can't be imposed until the appeal is done. How is this going to work?
Well, under these circumstances, that the number one, the likelihood is for this type of offense, and the first time offender is there would be no actual jail time. It's not impossible that there'd be jail time.
I think they want to lock them up. I do.
Yeah. And, but odds are that even if a sentence of incarceration were imposed, that it would be stayed pending appeal. Once again, that's not a guarantee, but even if the district judge refused to stay imposition of the sentence, if he actually sentenced President Trump to jail time, President Trump would have the right to ask the higher court to stay the imposition of the sentence pending appeal. So, looking in the tea leaves, I think it's highly unlikely that pending the appeal, President Trump spends any time in jail. What I've actually thought is probably more likely is some sort of home detention. The government, the judge could say, okay, I'm going to sentence you to 6 months of home detention where you have to wear an ankle bracelet or something, and you can't leave Manhattan or something like that. And that would be probably more difficult for the defendant, in this case, President Trump, to evade. But once again, I do have to confess a little ignorance here. Is I'm not a lawyer in New York. I would have to research under New York law the propriety of the home detention thing. And once again, the president would still have the opportunity to stay the imposition of even that sentence. So pending appeal. So, and then you have all the practical issues with they try to put President Trump in jail. They have to contend with his Secret Service.
Lock him up in Rikers with two Secret Service agents next to him.
Yeah,
I mean,
so
they really think this. I mean, I honestly think they're just fanatics, though, Daniel. I really do. And people should know when sentencing is supposed to take place during the Republican National Convention.
Yeah, 3 or 4 days before the convention starts.
So this is, I mean, how could you not see clear through what they're doing here? I mean, and you know what? I didn't think about it, but home detention would make sense because it's like the blowback's going to be bad. They know it. This is not going to pull well. The blowback is going to be awful. And then we're going to have them in a position. They got to do something. If they did home detention, they could keep them off the campaign trail. They could.
Yeah. Once again, of course, the question would be whether that sentence will be stayed pending the appeal. You know, I wouldn't put anything out of the realm of possibility with this judge. I mean,
speaking of the judge,
I have to say that.
There's a question.
He has ignored, in my view, what the law is repeatedly. I read those jury instructions. It was unfathomable. I mean, I would have told you it wasn't possible, Rich, but there it was.
And you wouldn't have been alone, Daniel. I mean, that's what everybody said. You can't. The day it happened, John Roberts reported on it. They started accusing him of fake news. People who weren't following along on Twitter maybe didn't see that. John Roberts of Fox News outlines what the judge is telling them. And people are like, that's impossible. That's not even allowed to happen in the, not only in New York, in the United States of America. We don't do that anywhere. Biden's own Ministry of Truth comes out and says that's not allowed in Zimbabwe, let alone in the United States. Yet that is exactly what happened. So incredibly, they just said it out loud. That's just what I opened the show with. You got to stop at this point pretending like you live in some kind of spectacular, exceptional country. You do not anymore. All right. If you rebuke this and punish them for it, then you will take the ultimate mantle of exceptionalism. But yeah, check this out. What do you think about this? This is obviously for you from Norm. It says, is there a chance that the judge set it up to make sure it's tossed on appeal so he can springboard to something and get to say he did something? So like he appeases the ruling class who he serves, and yet there's really nothing that comes of this. Like he says, I did my job. It's not my fault it was tossed on appeal. I don't know. Maybe it's like, did he set himself up with a back door here? I don't know. It's hard to read the minds of people, Norm, but I'll let Daniel say what he thinks.
Yeah, I could only speculate about that. I just know that this particular judge should not have been on this case, period. So, we've talked about that before. So he shouldn't have had the opportunity to use it as a springboard. I don't care whether he was killing his career or springboarding to a bigger, higher office, more august position. I don't know. He shouldn't have been able to make any of these decisions, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, this is I really do think Megyn Kelly has it down. I mean, this was such an unheard of perversion of our justice system. I mean, but here's the thing, it's unheard of to people like her. And you said it in one of the beginning segments, like this has been going on to normal people, especially in certain areas for a long time. And now it's just being highlighted because it's Donald Trump. He's high profile. He's running for president, but anyway, yeah, I mean, that's where it is. I know it's almost, God, man, it's almost 1:00. Listen, for those who don't know, Daniel has a bunch of great books on fake news, and you should definitely go check them out. You still have that download up there for people to check out, actually. I mean, I like myself a hard copy book, but if you guys want to test it out, you could read the whole thing if you wanted to, but if you wanted to test it out, you absolutely should go to his website. It's I'll put it up right now. It's DanielRstreet.com, and go check out his books and his Substack, because so much of this leading up to this verdict he had addressed on his Substack, and it was fantastic. I mean, right after this indictment came down, you did a lot of dissecting about why this case was crap, and now we're full circle. Everyone's talking about things that you already addressed at that time. But yeah, tell people where else they can follow you or where they should follow you and check you out, Daniel.
Yeah, the easy thing to do is to go to the website. From the website, you can go to my social media. You can go purchase the books at Amazon. There's links to my Substack, which is free, and there's links to my most recent book that came out in November, where you can get the digital version or even the audio version for free. So Daniel R. Street is got a link to everything.
Yeah, there it, and let me put it up there for people. There it is. You guys should and you can and should go check it out. There, speaking right, you can see the Substack right there. I love Daniel's books. They are fantastic. I say this all the time. You will, I guarantee you, read something that you forgot about. And it's mind-blowing because you realize that even if you're like us and you're political junkies, you realize that you have even somewhat become conditioned to their crap. And it rolls off somewhat, right? But you'll say, oh, yeah, I forgot about that one. It's unbelievable how much he keeps track of it. And by the way, if it was everything, is it even possible to write a single book about all the BS they have? Probably not. No. It would look like 3 copies of War and Peace, brother.
That's right. I was about to say it would look like the Encyclopedia Britannica.
Yeah, it's not even a book. Are you kidding? It's more like a series. It's a collection. Unbelievable. Yeah, I know I kept you for an hour. I'll let you go, Daniel. But thank you for joining us, and come back soon. There'll be more to react to, no doubt. But thanks for walking through it with us.
Hey, thank you for having me on, and I hope one time to come on to talk about something happy or something good, something positive, for a change.
Me too. That would be the day. I'm looking forward to it, my friend. I'll see you soon. All right, later. Daniel Street, ladies and gentlemen. One more time, let me put up that website, man. I mean, his books are just fantastic. Americans are being lied to and misled by the fake news media. The lies, misrepresentations, and biased reporting by legacy media undermine the public trust and threaten our republic. I'll tell you what, that was ahead of its time. I don't know how we get back the public trust in our institutions after what the hell we saw this year. I mean, before the Trump era, the FBI repeatedly was among the highest when we looked at trust in institutions, not only us, but Gallup and others. They were repeatedly at the top of the list. And now they're gone. They killed themselves. Nobody believes them anymore. I mean, the entire justice system itself has always had a group of critics, but it was never it was never mainstream. This has totally demolished what remained of faith in the system. And unfortunately, I would wish we had better news too sometimes, buddy, but unfortunately, it's warranted. They did this. And it's dangerous for a civil society because you cannot persist like this when the regime does not have credibility, when the regime does not have trust. But again, this is textbook for what happens. In America, you just haven't experienced it. You just don't know anything about it because you've been blessed to live in a relatively stable condition. But it isn't the normal human condition. That's just the truth of it. And it was fragile. Super fragile. And they decided it was time to smash it so they could keep power. Unbelievable. That's where we are. That is the reality. Do not delude yourself into thinking otherwise. Again, people are like, oh, this is one of the darkest days. Well, Sharf says he's right. I really don't know where else to equate this other than what I gave before, which is it is akin to the day after JFK was shot, because that was a Rubicon. That was a line that they crossed because they didn't like your choice. So they decided he had to go for whatever their reasons were. Maybe one day we'll see those reasons if they don't keep hiding it, even though it's against the law. Maybe one day we'll see those reasons. But For now, we have to take the word of people, a handful of people who know what's in those documents. But it's the same mindset, which is that we have a government that doesn't believe in Americanism anymore. They don't believe in it. They believe in power. They believe in raw, pure power. And they feel that they are privileged to wield it. Or not even privileged. No, that's not the correct way. They feel that they are entitled to wield it at all costs. And unfortunately, those costs are more than a free society can bear. You cannot be free and pay those costs. You just can't. So they get away with this. That really is the end for your kids, for your grandkids, for everything. By the way, I just got a message that Wolf JD Vance said, I saw you play clips to JD Vance. Should check this one out. He just eviscerated Wolf Blitzer on CNN. I did get it and I clicked on it, and it's Don Trump Jr. 36 seconds. You know what? You want to play it? Let's play it. What difference does it make? Let's play it. It's 1:30. I did want to go over the poll, but it's like somebody in the chat said we need new polling. He's absolutely right. However, we did just do that one. But if you want new polling, do what I've been saying. Go to the Public Polling Project. Did not even create a new one yet. So just fill that one up. The national poll. There's Georgia next to it. I think that's less important right now, don't you? Fill up the national poll. We'll do another one. All right. And share it. Share it. Because the more you share it, the less burden it is on the same people who contribute to the Public Polling Project every, 2 months, 3 months that we run it. When we get closer to the election, last time, we were fortunate enough to do it every month, but it was a different economy. So I understand. I have different expectations. I'm hoping for the best, but I have different expectations because, I mean, geez, you guys see the index from Gallup this morning? Sentiment on the economy has taken a complete dive, a complete nosedive. So much for any rebound or recovery or easing. GDP was crap, in case you guys didn't see that. 1%, some ridiculous number, 1 point something. It was like 1.5, I kid you not. Quarterly growth was awful. Annual growth is going to be awful. Inflation isn't going down. The rate of inflation has eased from some months to another, but I don't even believe them because I don't believe that last month's report because they're playing screwy with the data and other reports, and everybody knows it. You know, the of being revised down every month on a 12-month rolling basis for the employment report, astronomical. So they're playing games with the data as usual. And the producer price index, which is wholesale inflation, how much it cost producers, how much it increase cost they incurred. It makes no sense that the CPI would go in the other direction like that. Not like that. All right, so let's play JD's clip. Let's see what they're talking about with Wolf Blitzer. I mean, JD is a national treasure. I'm just going to say this. I don't care what you think about his positions on any other issues. When it comes to this kind of an issue, he is the national treasure. The guy knows what time it is in America. This is why he was the better choice. Sherrod Brown Josh Mandel is a nice guy. Known for years. He's a nice guy, but his time was during Sherrod Brown in 2018. The electorate kind of knew that, picked up on that, and so JD knows what we're facing right now. So we're going to go with JD. They made the right decision. They made the right call because JD Vance we call him that over here. He is one that distinguished, very distinguished. Yes. He's won the distinguished most representative senator award for the People's Pundit. He is the most representative senator in the U.S. Congress on the right. Period. Full stop. End of story. And there have been better ones here and there, but he is exactly what the Republican base is right now. Anyway, let's rock with especially, because Ohio is the Republican base at this point, because the Republican base is a Trumplican base. It is, in case people weren't paying attention to the primary and the 22 primaries. All right, let's roll it.
This judge committed multiple elements of reversible error, and he did it while his daughter has made a ton of money off of Democratic candidates and while he himself donated to the Biden campaign.
So let me repeat the question.
You cannot say that this trial was anything more than politics masquerading as justice. And yes, I will help Donald Trump. I will help Donald Trump however I think that I can, Wolf, because if we allow this to happen, it's so much bigger and so much more troubling than Donald Trump. If we allow this standard that you can throw your political opponents in jail because they're doing better than you in an election, it will be the end of this country as we know it. This judge committed multiple.
Wow. That's it. I mean, end of show. That's the takeaway. And you see Wolf's face? Let's fast forward here. Hold on. Bear with me. Look at him like he's confused or something. Like he's like, look at his face. This is the problem with the ruling class. Like he doesn't know what the hell JD's talking about or something. Are you kidding me? You're shocked, Wolf? You don't know the judge is a crook, Wolf? You don't know the judge is a Biden donor, Wolf? You don't know that the judge's daughter was the firm she works for was hired by the Biden campaign. You don't know that they've been raising money off of this prosecution, not even the prosecution, the concept that they would convict Donald Trump. You don't know that, Wolf Blitzer. Why are you looking with this stupid, confused look on your face? Why are you acting like you're in the dark or something? You're so full of crap. Why? Because you'll be dead by the time everyone's lined up against the wall and shot? I'm an old man. I don't care. You don't care about your kids? You don't care about your grandchildren? Your party will lose an election eventually. Nothing lasts forever. Not even illegitimate rogue regimes that prosecute their political opponents to hold on to power. They go too, Wolf. You're not worried about your kids and grandkids getting a taste of your own medicine? I am. The dumbass, confused look on your face. Now, let's go to a word from our sponsors, shall we? With everything that is happening in the world right now, man, I don't even know where to start. Usually I start with economics, but prosecuting your political opponents has a way of destabilizing the political economic order. With everything going on, it's no surprise that people are looking for safer places to invest their money. Stocks are unpredictable. And let's face it, inflation can really have an impact on the value of currencies. And that's why we're talking about one of our sponsors, Freedom Gold USA. If you've ever thought about investing in gold or silver, or if you're just interested in diversifying your investment portfolio, Freedom Gold USA is definitely a company that you should check out. What I like about Freedom Gold USA is that they're just all about helping you make smart investment choices in precious metals. They believe the more you know, the better. So they will offer free investment advice and guides and consultations to give you information that you need to make you confident that you're making the right decision. No pressure, no hard sell. What is also different about Freedom Gold USA is that they guarantee competitive pricing on some of the best quality and purity gold and silver you'll find. You know you're getting a solid deal. You don't have to worry about extra fees. They offer free shipping and insurance on all orders. Plus, you might even get some free silver on qualifying purchases. They'll give you $500 credit toward opening a gold or silver IRA. Folks, that's a nice bonus. Here's the best part. Dealing with Freedom Gold USA is simple and hassle-free. You will not get any of the pushy sales tactics. They're just about helping you reach your financial goals in a way that works for you. So, if you want to learn more, I recommend giving Freedom Gold USA a call at, and the number's on the screen, 888-279-3592. Tell them the People's Pundit sent you, 888-279-3592. Or check their website out. That's just for us, freedomgoldusa.com/rich. freedomgoldusa.com/rich. Find out about all their latest special offers and see what kind of deals you may qualify for. Let me give you that number one more time too, 888-279-3592, or visit www.freedomgoldusa.com/rich. Don't wait. Give them a call. Secure your financial future today. You know what? Let's take a little trip down memory lane, shall we? There's some interesting stuff here. What's this one? 15 seconds? Yeah, let's do this.
We just have to demonstrate that he will not take power by, if he does run, making sure he, under legitimate efforts of our Constitution, does not become the next president again.
Don't forget to sneak that in. Oh, I mean under any legitimate efforts under our Constitution. You mean being convicted with over 30 felony counts without an underlying crime? That's legitimate under the Constitution? That's funny because even left-wingers who work for Alvin Bragg and now write for the Intelligencer disagree with you. Now, even left-wing professors, legal professors, and scholars at Harvard University, George Mason University, Washington University, I mean, you name it. I have never seen bipartisan blowback like this. Have you? So it's like the impact. What's it going to have on the impact of the polls? What's it going to have on, people who just won't vote for a felon? First of all, we don't know that he'll really be a felon yet, as Daniel said, because he will have a right to appeal it. But that's been the goal. And you can see good old Norm, as quick as he possibly can, run to Twitter and felon. Let's revisit the clip from my buddy. He knows all about this. The Mexican president, Obrador, he's dealt with this himself. And this is the other outcome I don't think they anticipated. That they will make him a martyr like others were made martyrs. Leftists and left-wingers and right-wing leaders in these countries. He happens to be, by the way, a leftist. And yet he got along fabulously with Donald Trump. They worked, I think it's very clear that he would rather have Donald Trump in the Oval Office. But here's what he had said at the announcement. When news leaked that Alvin Bragg was going to indict former President Trump, this is what he said.
Está declarando el presidente Trump.
President Trump has declared.
Expresidente Trump. Que lo van a detener.
Ex-President Trump has declared that he will be arrested.
Creo que hoy.
I believe today.
Por un asunto.
Because of an issue.
Supuestamente. Como dicen
Supposedly.
Presuntamente.
Or as lawyers would say, allegedly.
Sí. Amoroso.
Things of love.
Que lo van a detener.
They want to arrest him.
Si fuese así,
if that is the case,
pues todo mundo sabría.
Then the whole world would know.
Porque no nos estamos chupando el dedo.
Because we're not sucking on our thumbs over here.
Que es para que no aparezca en la boleta.
That the real reason they want to arrest him is to remove him from the ballot.
Y si digo esto es porque yo padecí de la fabricación de un delito.
And I say this because I too was a victim of a fabricated crime because they didn't want me to be the candidate.
Y eso es completamente antidemocrático.
And that is completely anti-democratic.
Porque no se le permite al pueblo que sea el que decida.
Because they're not allowing the people to be the ones who decide.
I just got word that it appears Joe Manchin, the Democratic senator from West Virginia, has announced that he is leaving the Democratic Party. So, again, the fallout here continues. He is now he's not becoming a Republican from what I understand. He is becoming an independent. But here you had Obrador saying, listen, the whole world, it's like all of this stuff on CNN A stupid Wolf Blitzer. Who's confused face, right? His old boomer confused face. Stupid ass Wolf Blitzer. This is all for a show for a small section of the American electorate. That's what this is. The entire world knows what it really is. And today, I hate to say it, but the comments from former Intel people yesterday saying that this is going to do real damage to us and around the world. I don't see how it doesn't. We're an absolute laughing stock. There are enemies and people who dealt with us because they really had no choice, or even so-called allies, by the way, in Europe have this feeling towards us, absolutely, where they're kind of like laughing and celebrating because we can't take the moral high ground anymore. Like, they always knew it was bull. They always knew it was bull, that these aren't virtuous people that run the USA, right? And that this claim from, the right is might is right, was total crap. And now they just don't have to pretend anymore. And they're not going to move forward, with this. We have lost that position. They will not recognize that anymore. I mean, this is going to do awful, awful damage. And I think Abrador put it perfectly. I mean, this is it. So when I say the pretending is over, I mean, it's over, folks. I mean, I don't know about you guys, but I stopped pretending after, they lied to us about Iraq. I stopped pretending after they lied to us about CIA torturing people. Like, I stopped pretending back then. So, this isn't really like new to me, but it's going to be new to a bunch of other people. And if you haven't realized it yet, you're going to realize it real soon, because we have lost that position in the world. The State Department is going to be laughed at the next time they send out a press release about how Vladimir Putin's election was stolen. I mean, people are just going to laugh in our faces. This is their moment. This is their moment. And by the way, think about this for a second. I don't believe presidents, former presidents, whatever it is, really should be above the law the way that some people have argued. But I also do think that there has to be, the Supreme Court's going to have to detail what is and what isn't immune from prosecution for presidents and their actions. And at the very least, limited immunity dealing with acts that were taken while in office, that are not while in acts that are taken while in office, because that's too broad, too expansive, but acts that deal with or things that were done in their official capacity as president, because the president has got to feel like they have all options on the table without their political opponents later coming back and prosecuting them for it. That being said, for instance, using your office to funnel money to your family from crooks, and then using your office to funnel money back to those crooks using taxpayer money in Congress, who are a bunch of squishy idiots who are doing the same thing. So nobody's really objecting to it. That's what I'm talking about. Think about all of the things American presidents have done over the years, the lies they have told and the consequences of those lies. How many maimed and dead young U.S. soldiers over the lie in Iraq? How many, Donald Rumsfeld, whatever, you can blame who you want, but Bush was the man at the time. Let's get real. I brought up the CIA torture, the murdering of U.S. citizens under the guise of them being domestic terrorists without a trial, without due process. All of these heinous actions. And by the way, that's just the impact on us. What about upwards, and the estimates vary, but ballpark million dead Iraqis and maimed Iraqis from a lie. All right. Roosevelt, doing what he did, which, for people who don't know this, just ignoring all the warnings because he needed an excuse to enter World War II. The Lusitania, the Gulf of Tonkin, right? We could just keep going on and on. These acts that certainly should and are illegal, but are like crimes against humanity. And we crossed the Rubicon for a fabricated crime. That's what we do. That's the this is the standard for prosecuting former presidents. This is how sad this is. By the way, Trump was convicted of more felonies than the Black Hand of Death drug dealing serial killer that was dealt with by the same damn district. You could be a serial killer and get less charges than Donald Trump. And by the way, it wasn't just, again, he wasn't just a serial killer. I mean, he was a gangster. Murder, drug deals, extortion, racketeering. All resulted in fewer counts than what Donald Trump was convicted in a courtroom yesterday. This is the absurdity of this. Several presidents have committed war crime after war crime. Nothing. And I am certainly no fan of Islamic extremism, but how did Anwar al-Awlaki go from being George W. Bush's right-hand man with Muslim outreach at the State Department to being the #1 most wanted terrorist on the FBI's most wanted list, and then vaporized without a trial whatsoever? Nothing. But instead, you could fabricate a crime, and that's the standard.
And not do time. Fabricate a crime.
And the one who gets accused of being of committing the fabricated crime, while 2 star witnesses who admit on the stand to committing crimes. Because even if Stormy Daniels did what happened, that's Stormy. What she's relaying is that she committed extortion.
100%, and didn't get in trouble for it.
Not at all. And Michael Cohen is admitting to stealing from the Trump organization and falsifying records.
But didn't get in trouble.
Oh, obviously that's my cue, though. Is that what you're saying here?
Yeah.
That's my cue. All right, folks, don't forget, if you like the videos, share them far and wide. I 100% am in agreement that we do need new polling, and we need it fast. So do me a favor, support the Public Polling Project. Go right there to Locals, peoplespundit.locals.com. But the link to the Public Polling Project is in the video description below. Any successful crowdfund operation needs a large donor base, and in an environment like this where the economy sucks, we need a larger one than we had in 2020, which was like an engine, man. I mean, every state boom funded, every national boom funded. Yeah, and if just spread the word, if that's what you could do, but looking at the stream right now, there's quite a few viewers. I mean, theoretically, if everyone gave $5, we'd be in good shape. But it is what it is. Share it. Again, special thanks to Daniel for coming on. He always jumps on. I really can't thank Daniel enough. Great guy. Really forget about being a patriot. Just a good guy, good man. And always there when we need him at the last minute. And I can't thank him enough for it. He's amazing. And the viewers love him. You guys love him for a reason. So with that in mind, I'm going to bounce, but I'm going to leave you with a clip that I think is pretty prescient right now. A man that the left loved to hate, still to this day loves to hate from his grave. Oh, you have something to say?
Yes. On Monday, we'll do Free Willing Friday.
Oh, question. Laura's saying we will add the question segment on Monday to Free Will and Friday. That's a good idea, actually. Pound. Give me pound. All right. So with that in mind, I'm out, folks. Have a safe weekend. Locals, I'm in rare form, so don't be surprised if I pop on here and there. I need to vent, Locals. I need to vent. All right. You guys are like my therapy. All right. I'll see you guys soon. Locals has the crosstabs, by the way. The embargo is lifted. You could share it if you want. And again, unfortunately, I do think we need a new poll, though, pretty quick. Yeah. So we will see you. Got to keep our finger on the pulse. Although, you know what? Let's say it takes like a week to raise. That would be good, too. Yeah. Because there's knee-jerk reaction to things that cause certain biases. And for instance, Billy Bush tape took 2 days to iron itself back out, and then we were right back to the baseline. But we'll see. It would be nice to try to catch both. Does it receive? Yeah. Is there any movement at all? And if so, by the way, which way? Don't take for granted that it's only going towards Biden. Do not. I think this blowback is enormous. I think he raised $35 million in the 24 hours since his conviction. I mean, it's less than 24 hours. He's $34.5 million.
All I'm saying is
Wow.
They're gonna cut off their nose despite their doing so.
You know what? At this point, God willing, and like I said, I'm not going to insult anyone's intelligence. I'll always do my work impartially, but I'm not going to pretend like I don't have my own feelings and concerns. And I'm deeply, deeply, deeply concerned about the direction of this country. If they get away with it, listen, I got kids. I don't give a damn about any political party. I don't like Republicans. I don't like Democrats. You want my personal feelings? There you have it. I don't like any of them. But I do like the Constitution, and I want it to protect my children and my grandchildren. And this cannot happen because it requires you to have a say. The voter is sovereign in this country, not the state. You don't get to kill a president whenever you want. You don't get to imprison a president on bogus charges whenever you want. That isn't allowed in this country. End of story. And if you do try, you should be punished for a generation at the ballot box. A generation. You should be exiled from political power. Your whole family, your party, whoever went along with it. Joe Manchin, when you were gone, by the way, quit the Democratic Party. He did. He finally did. After years of us hearing from Joe and people who knows his family, he's been on the line for a long time. Know people who know the Manchin family. He's been on that line for a while, but he just didn't really agree with the Republican Party and didn't know where his home was. Well, he's a man alone now because this apparently is a line for Joe. All right, let me play this clip to lead you guys on out of here, and I will see you on Sunday. All the best, guys.
I know they desperately want Trump gone, and I know that they desperately want it codified that Trump cannot run again because, make no mistake, they remain scared to death of you, and they remain scared to death of Trump. Trump, 75 million, 80 million votes. And I'm going to tell you, you're not going anywhere. Even if Trump does, you're not. They can't separate you from Trump. And more importantly, they can't separate you from the ideas. They can't separate you from MAGA. They can't separate you from Make America Great Again, which I think remains one of our big campaign strengths going forward. They believe that they can destroy this bond that exists between you and Trump if they somehow make Trump look bad, make Trump look like a reprobate, embarrass you about Trump. They can't do it because you came before Trump.
And the question is, did they introduce more people to those ideas by doing this? Deuces. Have a good weekend, folks. I will see you soon. Thanks for tuning in.